This is Nathan Lindorf with The Rational Independent. Okay, let's try some real talk for a second. Reddit is, most days, it's a cesspool of nonsense. It's full of people who have these really strong opinions that are either ignorant or poisonous or overly bombastic at best. And they support this worldview that is narrowly tailored, and it's like it's designed to reject any input from outside of it. And I say Reddit broadly, and while it is dominated by the left, there are other sections of Reddit, r/conservative, r/the Donald, I think it was called for a little while, subreddits where people voluntarily silo themselves into these narrow pigeonholes where they hear what they want to hear, they get reinforcement of their opinion, and we end up with these crazy echo chambers where people spin out into wilder and wilder, further off the center. I think it's healthy for society to have to confront opinions you don't agree with. I think it's good to be part of an organization with a diverse set of opinions, beliefs, and values, because it forces everyone to try and coalesce in order for the organization to do something. Perfect case in point, classically speaking, take a look at the US military. The US military famously takes people from all races, creeds, colors, etc. They all have a common purpose, military success. And one of the sayings that you might have heard is that in the Marines, the only color that matters is green. They don't care what race you're from. They don't care about your background. They don't care how wealthy you are. You're a Marine, and everything else bleeds out of you, and you share that common purpose. It's a wonderful example of why that's a good thing. I disagree with most of what I read at Reddit. That's why I go there. It's a way of, on my own, proactively looking at what ideas and threads and narratives are bubbling up from the left, some of it structured, some of it organic, that coalesces around this leftist viewpoint, this leftist political drive. Because most of the time I find myself on the opposite end of that, so I want to understand what my opponents are thinking. I want to practice trying to counter those thoughts. So from time to time, I get a chance to explicate some of the things I believe. Most of the time, I get a chance to just analyze what the other side believes and what the left believes. And sometimes I get a chance to just be independent and critique the political theater that is all too common in our society. That's where we are today. From the Hill, Hunter Biden makes a surprise appearance at contempt of Congress hearing. So 30-second catch-up for where we are and how we got here. Republicans have been putting forth evidence and conjecture and assertion, pick your verb, that Hunter Biden is corrupt. And the reason why they're doing this, the going theory is they're going after Joe Biden, who they're saying, we believe the president is corrupt and that he's using his family to basically hide or launder the money he's receiving from these illicit sources. Because it's pretty obvious if you're corrupt, if you personally are receiving payouts from, say, foreign dictators who you then treat positively in your policy position. So if you're going to be a little clever, you might use a friend or a roommate or a family member, spouse, brother, whatever. And so there's a big push on the right for people to say, listen, here's the pieces that we put together that show that the Biden family is corrupt, that they have personally enriched themselves through basically influence peddling, through selling access to Vice President Joe Biden, to President Joe Biden, etc. That's been a talking point on the right and by extension the Republicans. And the flip side is, nope, Joe Biden's fine, everything's fine. Hunter Biden is a private citizen who's being persecuted by his father's political enemies. He's fine, nothing to see here, let's all just move on. Now, for myself, of course Joe Biden is corrupt. It almost goes without saying. Maybe that's the cynic in me. I would say most people involved in politics are corrupt, particularly, here's one of my litmus tests. If you've been in public service for multiple decades, if you've been an elected national representative for multiple decades, and we know what your salary is, and you're not supposed to receive income from other sources that might present conflict of interest. So you say, okay, let's do the math. If you've been a senator for 35 years and this was your net worth when you started, and this is what your income has been through these years, and this is now your net worth, and somehow you're worth 10 times or 100 times what you got paid in that time, where did the money come from? I mean, and I'm going to go ahead and just toss this out and say, it's not limited to just Joe Biden. It's not limited to just the Democrats. I have big problems with the reporting that shows stock market gains for representatives. And right and left, Republican and Democrat, you have congressmen who are beating the S&P by 2, 5, even 10 times what the S&P did in the given market in a given year. You don't get that from smarts. You get that from corruption. That's just reality. The genius of the founders, the genius of the Constitution, is not a government that works efficiently. It is a government that constrains corruption by saying we need a centralized government to function as a nation. We need to be empowered to protect our borders, to regulate our economy, to engage in international trade, treaties, diplomacy, etc. That's why the Confederacy, Confederation of Colonies, figure things out. Articles of Confederation, there it is. That's why the Articles of Confederation didn't work. They weren't tight enough. We need that centralized power. However, the moment you give anybody that kind of power, it's going to lead to corruption. It's inevitable. You know, power corrupts, and absolute power is actually pretty neat. But the genius of the Constitution was to constrain the inevitable corruption by pitting corrupt people against each other. That's what the balance of power is. You had federal versus state balance of power. You had the 3 branches of government at the federal level, multiple branches at each of the state levels. That's the reason why in Congress is split in half. Not only do you have 3 branches of government, executive, judicial, legislative, the legislative is split in half. Why is the legislative split in half? Well, if you pay attention to the constitutional reasoning, not how it is today, the House of Representatives was more like a direct democracy in the sense that the proportion of votes went to where the population went. So that was the voice of the people, meant to be more responsive to the whims of the people on a day-to-day basis. However, the Senate was meant to be a stabilizing influence, a moderating influence against the voice of the people. Okay, well, where did those senators come from? They were nominated by state legislatures, an intentionally non-democratic process designed to create representation on a federal level of the states, so that state interest within this federation, that state interest would have a voice at a federal level. We were so smart, we passed a constitutional amendment to get rid of that, and now we just elect our senators, and that hasn't made anything any better. Most of the problems that we have in our society today stem from the overall erosion over time of these checks and balances within the constitutional framework. That we touched on this the other day when we talked about the administrative state. The legislature is supposed to craft the laws whereby the federal government regulates the nation. However, that's not really how it's done. If you look at it, they will empower an administrative agency to write its own set of policies that then regulate the economy. And that administrative agency is staffed by permanent bureaucrats and run by the executive branch. In other words, the legislature is voluntarily ceding a portion of its power over to the executive. That disrupts the balance of power. There's 1,001 other problems I could point out. The point of all this is to say we have a little bit of a tempest in a teapot, because Congress has said, hey, we're going after Hunter Biden. We want him to come and appear. In fact, we're going to subpoena him to investigate his allegations of his corruption. And Hunter Biden said, I'm not coming to a closed-door hearing. I will only come to a public hearing. And Congress, the congressional Republicans in charge of this inquiry, said, no, we're not going to do that. We want you to come to a closed-door hearing. And he said, well, I'm not going to do that. So now they're going through this markup of a bill, a resolution to hold the president's son in contempt of Congress. So this is a laughable exercise where contempt of Congress means kind of like contempt of court. It means you're not doing what we have asked you to do, and so we're going to punish you to try and force compliance. Now, as a fun little stunt, in the hearing about this resolution to hold him in contempt of Congress, Hunter Biden shows up. And that creates a big old kerfuffle. So someone on the right says, who bribed Hunter Biden to be here? You are the epitome of white privilege, coming to the Oversight Committee, spitting in our face, ignoring a congressional subpoena to be deposed. What are you afraid of? You have no balls to come up here. I think that Hunter Biden should be arrested right here, right now, and go straight to jail, she added. Okay. So, and then the Democrats basically praised him and said, we should hear from him right now. Let's have him take over the committee. Okay. I don't know why the Republicans don't gleefully put him in front of the committee if he's there and willing and question him publicly. I see no reason not to do that if your goal is, as they promised, to pursue corruption and to investigate the Biden family's potential alleged corruption. So why don't you do that? Other than you have another goal in mind, which is what the Democrats are accusing. They're saying that they're basically, that there's nothing there. So here's the Democrat theory. The Republicans want Hunter Biden in a closed-door hearing so that they can selectively leak basically out of context clips and bits of the transcript to right-leaning audiences to foster the made-up narrative that the Bidens are corrupt. Okay? I don't think that's the case, because I think the Bidens are corrupt. But I also think Lindsey Graham is corrupt. So maybe that makes me an equal opportunity offender. I say I don't know why the Republicans don't just have him up on the stand, except the Republicans in Congress do a lot of things I don't understand, if their goal is liberty and constitutional order. However, as we've said in this channel many times, I think the Republicans have a different goal. The Republicans have what they say publicly as their goal, but then I think they have a goal that they're quiet about. But one of the rules that I have for observing human behavior is look at what the consequences of their actions are, regardless of what their words say. I find it's a pretty good way to distill down what someone's true motives are. If they're consistently achieving the same result, it's probably on purpose. So I think the Republican Party, the establishment Republican Party, the main arm of Republicans, okay, is to lose slowly and loudly and enrich themselves in the process. So they get brownie points for standing on their high horse. They get to accomplish their ends by screwing up politically what they say they want to do. They fail to do what they say they want to do. And they get to shove more ill-gotten gains into their pockets. That's my read on it. That's why I'm not a Republican. I'm also not a Democrat because I think the Democrats stand for evil. I think equity is evil. I think abortion is evil. There's a bunch of things on the Democrat platform just straight up morally reprehensible. I can't go there with you. So I'm politically homeless. What are you going to do? On a day like today, I get to look at the vapid political theater and I get to laugh at both sides. So that is my Reddit rant today. This is Nathan Lindorf with Rational Independent. Good luck out there.